prune juice all of a sudden, which I think is hilarious because he grew up on Earth mostly, right? And didn't they end up going back to Earth after they got him?
Yes.
Why didn't he? I don't know. I mean, not that.
Well, they in a future episode, when his adoptive mother comes on board, she talks to Guinan. And Guinan asks her, why didn't you ever give him prune juice? And she says, Worf refused to eat anything human.
Yes, I forgot about that.
I think that's episode Family, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yeah,
that's Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
he refused to eat anything human. He only wanted Klingon food.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and they were talking about it. Part of this script was that this was supposed to be. You're supposed to get the impression that Guinan's been trying. Yes. For a while to get something that, that he likes. So that's kind of the payoff here, and it's also there was also supposed to be. Worf was supposed to be in the end of this episode in the alternate timeline, but I don't know why they nixed that proposal, because that would have been great to have that payoff.
Yeah, absolutely. I will just say as a personal anecdote, after this episode aired, because we did watch it live, me and my dad, we watched it live. The joke in our house, in the Daling house, was anytime somebody had a little upset tummy and my mom would say, do you want some prune juice? If my father was in earshot, he would come out of whatever room he was in and say, a warrior's drink, and then go back into his room.
That's awesome.
I kid you not. To this day, if somebody mentions prune juice around my dad, he will say, a warrior's drink.
That's amazing. I guess she was just trying to find something that was sort of awful, because they like awful things,
right?
So I think Worf would have liked. Worf would
Here,
have
you
liked
like gross food. Drink this.
Like he would have liked that Beverly drink. Coca-Cola makes it for somewhere in Europe, and it's horrible. I think they only keep it around now so that they can have it at like their museums and stuff, because that's where I tried it. It was at the Atlanta Coca-Cola Museum, and it was awful. Anyway, I know that's sort of off topic, but I think Worf would like it.
He likes gross stuff, so he probably like it.
Things that humans don't, that most humans don't like. He's sort of like a hipster in that respect.
Yes.
Anyway, other human things that he's not too sure about is ladies, because Guinan tells him he should seek out some quote-unquote companionship, and Worf says that human women are too fragile, and she tries to tell him, well, there's some that would think you're tame, and I love it when he has his laugh.
The laugh is greatest.
It's so great. It's so great. And
impossible.
Because other Klingons laugh more than Worf does. Like Worf, it's like he's got it in his head that he's supposed to be like stoic all the time. But they're always like, "Oh, you're weak," ha 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 ha. Like they laugh all the time. But whatever. So I just enjoy it when he laughs, or when he sings Klingon opera, because that's also hilarious.
Yeah.
But
you have to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say, just a quick comment about Michael Dorn playing the character. I mean, he really threw himself into this character. I mean, even now he's gone on the record saying if they called him to do a cameo in something or do something, he'd do it again. He'd play Worf again. Like, it's not like he's like, oh, I've hung up my ridges, I'm no longer going to play this character. No, he'll play the character again. And I think that just speaks a lot to the actor of how much he just threw himself, much like Brent Spiner and Data, we always talk about him, but Michael Dorn did a great job with Worf.
Mm-hmm. Well, God, yeah, he did, because I wonder sometimes some of the things that he says, if he ever had to do multiple takes, because some of it is ridiculous, like him saying here in this scene that he didn't want to test any of those kind of theories that someone might find him tame or whatever, for the safety of his fellow crew members, It's like, and so I wrote, Worf, are you overcompensating much?
It's like, all right, calm down, bro. Just calm down.
They both look up. They see something that looks kind of like a wormhole or something outside. Worf gets called to the bridge, and we find out Guinan must know that there's something up because she stands in the window and looks out and goes, no. NC. So then we get our normal shot of the Enterprise exterior. We see Worf enter the bridge. Picard is asking Data for an analysis, and Data says that it's a time displacement. Then they see something coming through the sensors, and the picture shutters, and Picard turns to ask his lieutenant what the anomaly is, and it's no longer Worf, but it's Tasha Yar. What?
And they did a great job of setting up that camera shot, because they showed him looking over, at Worf, and they focused on Worf, and then it focused back, and then you get the payoff, along with the other things, the lighting and things that changed.
Well, I like
but that's just a beautiful shot.
I like that they do it at the end too. So then, whenever he turns around to ask, then Worf is back. So that's exciting. But yeah, it's like, like if you didn't already notice, like, hey, why is everything darker? Did we realize
in purple lighting above?
Oh right, yeah. It's the new gritty Next Generation.
Yeah, I found it odd that I guess it was, again, meant to be the total contrast and swap, because in the regular timeline, everything on the Enterprise is bright and well lit, except for 10 Forward, which is dimly lit and soothing, because you're supposed to be relaxing fun times. Yep. And then now it's completely flipped. Everything on the Enterprise is dark. It's almost too dark. It's could someone please raise the dimmer switch a little bit? It's really dark
and
serious. Then 10, and then 10 Forward is bright. It's almost like a cafeteria bright.
Well, that's what it is, really.
Yeah, it turned into a mess hall, basically.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the whole idea of it being like a battleship.
So, Tasha couldn't tell what was going on because there was too much interference. And I put in my notes that things are not quite as usual, besides the obvious of Tasha being back. The sets have much less light. Plus, their uniforms are a bit different. They have these black bands at the wrists. And I kind of like that touch. That's cool. And they're wearing, shiny belts. And a couple people have, some I don't know, more... I don't know what it's called, but I think I called it maybe bandolier style. But, I don't know what it's called, but, they wear them in, the military, with their dress uniforms sometimes.
Do you know what that's actually called, Brooke?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what that's called.
It's called a Sam Brown belt.
Oh.
It's a
belt. You would know.
I know. It's a belt... which is supported by a strap going over your shoulder, your right shoulder. That's like Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Yeah,
people wear that and all that. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's also cool. I don't know if you can see it right from there, but Riker, they just have the belt, and then they all have a sidearm phaser,
a gigantic phaser.
Yeah.
And the buckle on the belt is the Starfleet symbol, their communicators and stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to.
And they had to do that because they didn't have a lot of money,
right,
to do a lot of stuff. So they're like, okay, what can we do just to make things a little bit different, but not look like we're cheap.
I watched it a few times to figure out if they made new uniforms for like the main cast, like the senior staff or whatever, and I think they did, at least like, because now it was 2 pieces, so at least like the jackets they did, because it didn't look like they just applied the black to the wrist, because like Patrick Stewart's was a little more loose around the collar, and like there was a few things that were a little bit different, but you know, they still had everybody else in the background with like older uniforms, but still with the belts and stuff, you know, like so that they could just pass as being, you know, in these new style of outfits. And you know, they probably didn't realize that someone would be sitting there, you know, 30 years later, like picking it apart.
Yeah, and Eric Stillwell in that book, he mentions the one thing that he hates to this day about this episode is the when they had her read off, you know, NCC 1701C USS Enterprise. He's like, that's just, come on. He's like, that is, we know what's it. He's like, he goes, you know what 1711C is, you know? He goes, but what I will say is this. It's probably one of the best cold opens of the series, man. It's just, it's got everything. I mean, it sets up everything going forward, and it's just done so good. The music, the uniform, the set, the twist already. You got a twist in the first 3 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, more than one. Like, there's lots of twists. It's great. So, well, not that this has anything to do with that, but just back to the uniforms. I kind of want to, you know, I keep thinking I'm going to make myself a Starfleet uniform, and usually it's just I want to do like sciences for Deep Space Nine with the teal. But if I were going to do a Next Generation one, I would probably do one from this episode and wear the belt and stuff, because it's just other people don't really ever do that, and I would love to see other people recognize it.
No, that would be cool if you made this particular uniform. It'd be neat to see people like recognize it and be like,
you only want to be friends with the people who can recognize that uniform. Anybody else, forget it.
Right.
The Marables of the world and David Isaacs, just forget it. Get out.
Listen, I still have my Star Wars friends, okay? I love that Joe is besmirching his co-host and friends over here.
I mean, David has just so much disdain for Star Trek. I mean, even when Marable posted the picture of the mask, I mean, David's even like, "Oh, it's terrible." I mean, like, David, relax, dude.
Well, let's not get into Star Wars fans who are angry. I have a lot of thoughts on those people, but I'll just keep them to myself.
Moving on. Star Trek. So we go back to Guinan. She turns away from the window. She's got this worried expression. And then we see that 10 Forward is all lit up, and it's full of people, and they're all chattering, and they've got, like, their little lunches with them. So it's not a bar anymore. This is where it's like, oh, now it's the canteen. All right.
You got all that great, all the other stuff they did. All the like the chatter over the comms, you know, fleet formation briefing in the main war room, Ensign Thomas to CIC, all this stuff that like you would hear like at a time of war on like a base or a ship. Mm-hmm. So
and it's so weird because you just don't hear anybody's voice. You know, you don't hear like the voice of God or whatever. Like for me. Usually, unless it's really important and Picard calls people to something. But, like, the only disembodied voice is usually the computer. So it's like,
right.
Oh, it's rough hearing all these
people. They very rarely, I mean, in the show, besides if you do a ship-wide communication, like the captain, if there's something serious going on. But normally you don't hear anything like that over the comms.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
It's crazy. So, yeah, Guinan thinks this isn't right. Obviously, we know